Our moderator and introducing our program is Cynthia Matthews, and I know she's known to most of you here, but some of you may not know that Cynthia is a young wife of a professor who took a job here at this young campus, came, and I think she was 28, and there was no Planned Parenthood affiliate here, and she put 2 phones in her kitchen. One said Matthews Family, and the other said Planned Parenthood Santa Cruz County. And she has helped assemble a board, and she stayed on and was public affairs director in her final years, which were 40 when she finally retired. So she really knows how to stay the course. She then has served 24 years on the Santa Cruz City Council and every issue of significance in this city for at least 24 years and probably a few years before and a couple of years since now. She's also involved in. So she's a busy, amazing person. So Cynthia, take it away.
Thanks, Carol. And I keep trying to retire, but these things just don't quit. You know? I will mention briefly, because we are doing this on the 49th anniversary of the Roe decision, my involvement with this issue goes back significantly further even. When I was first married, mid-60s, we lived in San Diego. I was a volunteer with Planned Parenthood. And at that time, got to know some friends who were interested in abortion reform. Of course, it was at that time not yet legal in California, let alone the Roe decision. And we worked with Pat McGinnis, a rabid abortion rights pioneer in San Francisco, who had a group called Abortion Counseling Service. She put together information on credible abortion providers, mostly in Mexico. And the group of us in San Diego formed a little chapter. We met with people in our living rooms who needed this information. We gave the packet of information and provided them information on how to go to safe resources in Mexico. I drove a friend twice to Mexico, stayed with her. It was good care. She came back, but you know, that's what it was at that time. And we worked hard to get the abortion law reformed in California, and were elated when the Roe decision was handed down. And I think everyone on this call has a sense of the precarious situation we're in. I'm not even going to describe it. We all know how bad it is. And it does put a chill in our hearts to think that in some parts of this country, people are already going back to those bad days. So I do want to thank those of you who are present and our speakers and what they're doing. The program today, as you know, is divided into 2 parts. We're going to hear from 2 organizations, both of whom are working hard to defend choice and improve access. The first is Center for Reproductive Rights, 30 years in the legal field globally defending reproductive choice and access to services. And the second, the new kid on the block, Plan C, is taking advantage of new technology, new opportunities, breaking the box and bypassing brick and mortar clinics altogether and putting women, they themselves don't provide the medical abortion, but publicizing the availability of safe medical abortion. So 2 very different approaches, one very long view, the other moving the needle and helping people in real time. So with that, I am going to introduce the first group, and particularly Carolyn Van Hoff. Carolyn's joined us before with Reproductive Rights Network events. She's the Senior Philanthropy Officer for the center. She's been there for 6 years with Planned Parenthood Marmonte for 5 years prior to that. So she is one of the warriors in this field. She will be making some brief remarks about the work of the Center for Reproductive Rights, and then she'll introduce one of the staff members there, a legal attorney, who'll give us a bigger picture. So Carolyn, I am going to hand it off to you. You're up there in my screen.
Thank you, Cynthia. And I'd like to thank the Democratic Women's Club and the Repro Rights Network for inviting us here today. As you said, I do remember speaking to both of these groups separately in the past, and I've always been impressed by how motivated and passionate your members are. So it's a pleasure to be back, and very interesting to be doing it virtually for the first time. So, but we're getting used to it, right? I'm really grateful for this opportunity to share information about our work with everyone today. And for those who may not be familiar with the center, as Cynthia mentioned, I just want to briefly give you a very broad outline of who we are and what we do. And then Hillary is going to drill down into what's going on. So the center uses the power of law to advance reproductive rights as fundamental human rights around the world. And I like to think of us as the repro rights law firm for the world. Our lawyers and advocates work tirelessly. We have 3 prongs. We work to build, defend, and enforce legal protections for reproductive rights for the dignity, equality, health, and well-being of every person. So for almost 30 years, the center has been at the forefront of that fight. We have programs in the United States, Africa, Asia, Europe, Latin America, and the Caribbean, and we have a global advocacy program at the UN. Our groundbreaking legal victories before national courts and UN committees, as well as regional human rights bodies, have transformed how reproductive rights are understood and have strengthened reproductive health laws and policies in more than 60 countries around the globe, impacting countless people around the world. In just this past 6 years since I've been on board with the center, this is the 4th time that we've had a case before the Supreme Court. We won the Whole Woman's Health case in Texas in 2016. We've won the Louisiana case in, I believe that was 2020, just a couple of years ago. Then just this past fall, we were at the Supreme Court twice with Texas SB 8, which I'm sure you're all familiar with, and our Mississippi case that where Mississippi has very aggressively asked for Roe to be overturned by the court. So today you're going to hear about what's happening from Hillary Schneller, who joined the center in 2014. I'm not going to give a lot of her background because I believe you've all seen her bio already, but she's a senior staff attorney. And I'm so excited that she's joining us today because she was co-lead counsel in the recent Supreme Court case for Mississippi. And she was in the courtroom on the day of oral argument. She's so knowledgeable about this case. And I'm sure that your attention is going to be laser focused on what she has to say. So it's with great pleasure that I turn the discussion over to Hillary.
Thank you very, very much for the introduction, and really thank you all for having me and for the donation to the center. We really appreciate it. And I am a few hours ahead of most of you in New York, where the center's headquarters is, but very happy to join you on a Saturday. So as has been mentioned, today is the 49th anniversary of Roe. And given that anniversary, we are really staring down the biggest threat to the right to abortion, the right to reproductive autonomy that we have seen in that half century. So it was a little hard to figure out how to start today. I am a very fundamentally optimistic person, but the last year has been really challenging. I came to this work because it is what energizes me and because it is about equality at the most very basic level. If the government can control our reproductive decisions, we're not equal and we're not free. And as a litigator at the center for over 7 years, I've seen a real roller coaster alongside our clients. Roe has always been a floor. It has never been enough. It has never secured abortion access for everyone. But we've had really important victories, some of which Carolyn mentioned during that time, where we've truly been able to build beyond Roe and expand access to abortion. Now in the United States, we are poised for a dramatic retrogression. And in particular, given that the center works globally, I really want to note that is in stark contrast to the rest of the world, where we have seen a trend of liberalizing abortion laws over the last 25 years. And I think we can all sort of feel that retrogression, and I feel it, just as an advocate and a lawyer more generally, in the failures in other aspects of our democracy, right? The courts failing to enforce the Constitution in a number of ways, federal legislators standing against voting rights. So this can all feel sort of like we're at a very despairing time, but I sort of try to take myself back from that. Both of my grandmothers had abortions before Roe. And so their lives, my family, has been shaped by abortion in many ways, as has many of yours, I'm sure. And so I will not allow politicians and courts to take away the incredible progress we've made and that we will continue to make. So I'm going to talk about the Mississippi and Texas cases to give some context to the really high stakes of the moment we're in. But I just wanted to sort of start that way to say, I hope that we can all sort of take energy from this moment and not despair, because really, regardless of the decisions in those cases, this is a moment to engage or re-engage, because there is so much work to do going forward. So to start with those cases, these two cases have been before the Supreme Court in the last year, and they're really exemplars of what we are seeing across the South and Midwest in particular, and for decades. Since Roe, anti-abortion politicians have passed thousands of restrictions on abortion. 2021 was tied with 1973, the year Roe was decided, for the greatest number of restrictions passed in a single year. And in 2018, with a change in the composition of the Supreme Court, we really saw politicians further emboldened, passing not only restrictions on abortion, but outright bans. So those laws, right, are saying the quiet part out loud. They are clear test cases to overturn Roe. And these restrictions and bans deliberately target and disproportionately harm poor people, Black people, and other communities of color. And that's not an accident, right? We know that historically governments have used reproductive control as a way of enforcing inequality. And thus it is no accident that the same states that are passing these restrictions also make it harder to support families that people already have, right? To pass supportive policies for maternal and child health. And also make it hard to, right, fully have laws that reflect what communities want by making it harder to vote. So all of these issues are very intertwined. So to zoom in a little bit on Mississippi and Texas in particular, in 2018, Mississippi passed a 15-week abortion ban. About a dozen other states quickly followed suit, passing bans on abortion at various points in pregnancy, all unconstitutional, all with the clear goal of getting a test case to the Supreme Court to overturn Roe. Many of those states have passed multiple bans on abortion. The year after Mississippi passed its 15-week ban, it passed a 6-week ban on abortion. So these laws are just arbitrary attempts to sort of throw everything at the wall to get the court to overturn Roe. In the Supreme Court, we represent Jackson Women's Health Organization. They have been our client for about 20 years, and they have been the only clinic in the state of Mississippi for over a decade. So after losing in the lower courts, Mississippi asked the Supreme Court to review its 15-week ban. And I think it's clear, but just to make extra clear, this is really the most direct challenge to Roe the court has seen in decades. A 15-week ban, a prohibition on abortion 2 full months before viability, simply cannot stand under Roe. So the court agreed to hear this case in May of 2021. And around that same time, Texas passed SB 8. So again, all of these states are sort of acting in concert together. As I think most of you are aware, SB 8 is a 6-week abortion ban that was deliberately designed to make it hard to challenge by deputizing private individuals rather than the state to enforce the law. So it allows literally anyone to sue abortion providers and people who help people access abortion for a minimum of $10,000 per abortion that is provided after 6 weeks. So given the extreme risk providers and practical support organizations would be taking if they violated the law, most abortions in Texas have stopped as of September 1st. And that was the whole point of this law. The Texas ban has resulted in a lot of litigation trying to stop it, including the case we brought to the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court has now repeatedly refused to block the law, citing hard questions about procedure that, to be clear, would not be so hard if the case was not about abortion. And as a result, abortion has effectively been banned in Texas for 5 months. On December 10th, we got the most recent decision from the Supreme Court in this Texas case, which allowed a very, very narrow part of our lawsuit to go forward, but would not stop these vigilante bounty hunter lawsuits from going forward. So really doesn't provide us and our clients the relief they need to resume services. And just this past week on Thursday, the Supreme Court again refused a request we made, sort of trying to inch the remaining part of our lawsuit forward. Justice Sotomayor said in dissent, "This is a disaster for the rule of law and a grave disservice to the women in Texas who have a right to control their own bodies. I will not stand silently as the state continues to nullify this constitutional guarantee." And she really is absolutely right. I can't sort of overstate how bad things have been in Texas for Texans, for our clients trying to provide and receive abortion services. It's really been a human rights crisis with people who have the means to travel, trying to access abortion in other states. We represent clients in Oklahoma, Louisiana, New Mexico, right? All of the states that border Texas, and they are seeing a flood of patients coming in from Texas. Many Texans can't, right, make that multi-day excursion to another state to access abortion, so they are forced to continue pregnancies against their will. And I go into a little bit of detail on Texas because if the court overrules Roe, the real question in the Mississippi case, the chaos and harm we are seeing in Texas would be magnified exponentially. So I just wanted to give some of that background on Texas. I now turn a little bit more into the details of the Mississippi case where I'm one of the co-lead attorneys. So as Carlin mentioned, on December 1st, my colleague Julie Rickelman, our Senior Director of Litigation at the center, argued before the Supreme Court, and I was there sort of as her sidekick in the courtroom. Because of COVID, only arguing attorneys, the press and the justices were there. So it was a very odd, very sort of empty place. I've been in the Supreme Court for the 2 other cases the center recently had before the court, and the energy was very different. Here, the marble halls were completely empty. And I think that sort of odd feeling was echoed just in, it is pretty outrageous to feel that the arguments Mississippi is making to take away our very basic human rights are being taken seriously by the highest court in the land. So that was the gloss sort of I went out of the courtroom feeling sort of after seeing my colleague do this phenomenal job sort of making an oral presentation to the court. And I wanted to tick through just really briefly the kind of key arguments we made to the court, because they are also arguments that are important for the public to know. So, as people are talking about these cases, these are sort of the themes that are coming up in both the Mississippi and Texas cases, and really about the heart of this right. So the first is the integrity of the court and precedent, right? This is not the first time the court has been asked to overturn Roe. It's the 7th, and every single argument Mississippi has made to the court has been considered and rejected by the court before. So in the usual case, the court does not overturn an earlier decision simply because it disagrees with it. It needs a much better reason. It needs some change that has happened, and usually a real seismic change that has happened. None of that is true here. Mississippi really has seen a difference in the composition of the court and is hoping for a different result. And it's sort of important for the public to get that, right? Roe is one of the very few decisions Americans know by name. And so if the court overturns Roe, people will know what that means, and the court needs to understand that the public is paying attention and will understand. And the second point is related, that even if the court does not use the words Roe is overturned, if they uphold a 15-week ban, that is what they have done. So there is no compromise, there is no half measure here. The court really has to confront this sort of key question that I think in some ways they may think they've been able to hide behind in the Texas case, because many of the questions that have come before them are clothed in procedure. In the Mississippi case, that is just not the case. The question is clearly black and white before them as to whether they will stand by this right they have stood by for now 49 years, or whether they will take us backwards. The third point is about gender equality, the importance of abortion for the really incredible but incremental progress women have made over the last 15 years. Really shouldn't have to be stated, but Mississippi is arguing that essentially women have it all now. There are prohibitions on pregnancy discrimination, there's childcare, and so we no longer need access to abortion. That is, of course, wrong and really misses the point. It ignores that abortion has been essential to a lot of the progress women have made. And we had a real amazing first of its kind amicus brief, sort of friend of the court brief, filed by economists in this case, explaining the data that demonstrates that much of the educational attainment, professional advancements women have been able to make over the last 50 years have been as a result of access to abortion, and abortion specifically, not contraception. So sort of Mississippi is asking the court, like, well, let's just ignore all of that data. Everything is great now, so you can get rid of this fundamental right. And of course, the fourth point, which kind of follows from that one, is that, and follows from Texas, is that if Roe is overturned, half the states in this country are poised to ban abortion completely. And just the real harm and chaos that will bring to people in half the states in the nation. The litigation would not stop. The court may imagine that there is some way for, we'll just return this to the states and everything will quiet down. And absolutely the opposite is true. We are seeing the impact of nullifying the right to abortion in one state. If 25 states follow suit, you know, it's, that harm is magnified so deeply and exponentially that we hope the court is seeing that preview of that in the unnecessary kind of preview we're getting from that in Texas, but just really bringing home the deep harm for people's real fundamental dignity and health that overturning the right to abortion would bring. So I just, to take a step back, it's been definitely a real honor to work on this case, to work on behalf of our clients, and to be in the courtroom with Julie. And as I've said before, on the flip side, it's sort of outrageous that we are here now. One of the lines of questioning that was very concerning from the justices, in particular Justice Kavanaugh, was some questions about the notion that the Constitution is neutral on abortion, and this idea that, well, the court could just take itself out of this because these cases are hard. And that's just, of course, right, not the court's job. The court's job is to enforce the Constitution, and the Constitution is not neutral on abortion, on our fundamental liberty, right? The 14th Amendment protects our right to liberty, of which abortion is a key part. So this idea of sort of neutrality and like leaving things to the states is really kind of a misleading notion of what the point of the entire Constitution and the role of the courts really is. So that leaving the courtroom with that feeling was, with that sort of question in mind in particular, was, you know, concerning and pretty disturbing. And I think many of us are, in this space of a lot of uncertainty and fear, I just want to kind of layer onto that. We're not just waiting around for the court to decide the Mississippi case. In addition to the work we are doing before the Supreme Court and in courts across the country, we're advocating on a number of other fronts as well. And in particular, I wanted to highlight work the center has been doing for, I think, over or nearly a decade now to move ahead federal legislation called the Women's Health Protection Act, or WIPA, which would, regardless of what the Supreme Court does, protect against abortion bans and restrictions by guaranteeing a statutory federal right to abortion, to access abortion, and to provide abortion. So if Roe fell, WIPA would provide a new floor for us to build upon. In September, the House took an historic vote to pass WIPA, which was a really long time coming. Of course, now it is up to the Senate, where I can imagine the faces sort of falling, given that we just saw the Senate fail to pass the Voting Rights Act. I will say, you know, Texas brought new attention to this issue and really pushed the House to pass WIPA, something we weren't optimistic was going to happen. And the other point is, it's really important to see which senators take a stand, right? It matters that we saw which senators voted for the Voting Rights Act and which ones didn't. And the same thing can be said about WIPA. It is a way of holding people accountable, even if it doesn't ultimately succeed in this moment. It moves the needle for holding people accountable, and also just to get public attention on sort of the stakes where we are now. So where I started was that, right, the anniversary that we're sort of celebrating of Roe right now doesn't feel as celebratory as it should. But I want to emphasize that sort of regardless of what the Supreme Court is doing, there is going to be more work to do. So at the very least, not to sort of give up or disengage. This is really the time to be having these conversations, to talk about abortion, support abortion funds, support abortion providers, and sort of be having this engagement that I think you all seem to be very engaged in already, but just to sort of spread that as far and wide and deeply as you can. So I'll stop there.
So at this point, we'll transition to the second part of our program. What an amazing combination of effort and energy being given to this, and that is Plan C. This, as I mentioned, is the newer kid on the block, going past brick and mortar clinics, really tapping into pushing the window, pushing the envelope and new technologies. And speaking for Plan C is Imani Wilson-Shabazz, who is a graduate student in the UCLA Fielding School of Public Health. She's earning a master's in public health and community health sciences with a certificate in population and reproductive health. Recent graduate of USC with a BA in cognitive science and a BA in gender studies. She is currently working at Plan C as their partnership manager, facilitating community partnerships to increase awareness of the abortion pill access around the country. She provides lectures, webinars, and educational videos. I'm obviously reading this. I want to get it right. And on how to advocate for and promote medication abortion. To be clear, Plan C doesn't provide, but advocates and gives information. So Imani, I'm going to hand it over to you, and I think we're all very eager to hear what you have to tell us.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I definitely am excited to talk a little bit more about Plan C and how we kind of see the abortion landscape and kind of what we do and how people can get involved. So yeah, thank you so much for having me. Okay, so abortion access is changing. All around the country, the right to abortion is being challenged by politicians. And so the right to choose what happens to our bodies is being leveraged for votes. And so not only is this unconstitutional, but it's absolutely unacceptable. And luckily for us, we have that power to kind of change the things that we cannot accept. And so the same internet that has been polarizing people over a normal health issue like abortion has also allowed us unprecedented access to new and exciting health options, specifically in the form of abortion pills by mail. So medication abortion has been around and proven to be safe and effective for over 30 years in other countries. Yet this information has not been spread widely here in the US. So not many people know that one can safely and effectively terminate an early pregnancy by taking 5 little pills. I didn't know that before I started working with Plan C last year. And so here I was getting my Master of Public Health, and I didn't even know that 20 years ago, this access to this medication was restricted. And I didn't know all the obstacles that were being, or that pregnant people were facing to get this medication. And so, oh, sorry, my thing is messing up. Hold on 1 second. Can y'all still hear me?
Yes, we hear you fine.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, still good. I don't know why it's like, okay, sorry about that.
Just wing it.
No, sorry. It sounded like my audio was messing up, but it's not. Okay. So anyway, so abortion pills delivered by mail have the potential to reduce many of the barriers to abortion care faced by marginalized communities. The fact that these pills can be mailed means that individuals in rural places that may live many, many miles away from their nearest abortion clinic can receive care without ever having to leave their homes. This also means that people can avoid expensive travel, lodging, and childcare costs that create huge obstacles for pregnant people seeking care. Not to mention, the ability to self-manage your abortion in your own home can feel more comfortable and safe to some people. This is especially true for gender minorities and people of color who often can have tense and traumatic experiences with healthcare providers. Being able to control your abortion environment is powerful and can lead to a better abortion experience. Now, this is not to say that medication abortion is the right decision for everyone. There will always be a need and a preference for surgical abortion procedures and abortion clinics. And pregnant people deserve to have all the information necessary and access necessary to make the best choice for themselves. But what's happening in our country is actually ushering in new understanding about this modern method of self-care and making everyone from the politician to the doctor take a closer look and ask, why isn't this medication more available? So it's causing medical providers to ask, why can't I prescribe this FDA-approved medication to my patient? And it's causing patients to ask, if I can get all my other medications online, why couldn't I get this one? So it's really shining a light on the way this particular option has been singled out and miscategorized for decades, all because of politics. But the reality is that for the past decade, as legislators in too many states across our country have been shutting down access to abortion clinics, tens of thousands of people in the US have already been taking matters into their own hands. They're going online, ordering abortion pills, and self-managing their abortion at home with as much or as little input from health providers as they wish. So along with this, researchers keep publishing new research that supports how safe, effective, and equitable this self-managed model can be. So this is what we at Plan C call a 21st century abortion. Here in California, where our right to abortion is protected, numerous telemedicine companies have sprung up during the pandemic, and today we have many options. So Choice, Hey Jane, Abortion on Demand, and Forward Midwifery all offer telehealth services and will mail pills to your home. And thanks to digital abortion funds and donors, these services all offer a sliding scale, making sure that cost will never be a barrier. These telehealth services aren't just located in California. Telehealth abortion providers are now in half the country, And thanks to the new FDA decision to permanently remove the in-person dispensing requirement, these services are here to stay and will continue to mail pills to pregnant people in need where they can. And so a brief side note about that FDA ruling that came out last month. So the removal of the in-person dispensing requirement is a long overdue victory for abortion access. But the FDA's failure to remove all the restrictions on mifepristone, which is one of the medications involved in the medication abortion process, is inexcusable. We have decades of data proving that mifepristone is extremely safe, and it should be available through regular pharmacies and prescribed without having to specially register with the distributor. So these unnecessary restrictions make it harder for pregnant people in all states to access abortion pills and continues to feed into a false narrative that mifepristone is a dangerous medication. But going back to the US landscape, these continued FDA restrictions, as well as state-by-state laws, will keep making it harder to access abortion in certain states, and mainly those are going to be conservative states. And if Roe falls this summer, a dozen states will enact sugar laws, creating new bans against abortion. And to be clear, this is a massive problem, and we must continue to fight for access to abortion in every state to ensure equitable laws and to decriminalize abortion care in all ways. But the point that I want to make here is that these restrictions in red states have not and will not eliminate access to safe abortions. Abortion pills by mail is a reality in every state in our country, and we believe that this will continue to be how people access safe abortion, even if Roe is overturned. The most important thing that we think you need to know about the abortion landscape, which so many people still don't, is that abortion medication is widely available online right now with hotlines for support and shipping straight to a person's door. So we believe that people in restricted states will continue to go online and find abortion pills when they want to end an early pregnancy. In fact, international doctors and pharmacies are already leading the charge, providing abortion pills to pregnant people in states with restrictions under a human rights approach. And organizations like If When How and the ACLU are lawyering for reproductive justice with the position that no one should be criminalized or marginalized for managing their own healthcare. And so one of the most notable organizations is Aid Access, which is an international human rights initiative dedicated to providing abortion pills to pregnant people in the US that live in restricted states. For years now, the Doctors with Aid Access have been helping pregnant people take control of their abortion process and providing them with safe and low-cost abortion pills. And so we think it's very encouraging to know that we have allies all around the globe that are willing to do this work and to help people get the care that they need. If at this point you're thinking all of this sounds complex, you're definitely right. And this is where Plan C comes in. So Plan C is a nonprofit reproductive health campaign for universal abortion pill access in the US. Our website and guide to pills includes information on abortion pills by mail, including a research-driven directory of where and how people are already accessing pills in all 50 states, with or without that telehealth support. The website also provides resources for free medical and legal hotlines to ensure that pregnant people have all the tools they need to make an informed decision. So we work closely with reproductive justice and tech to disrupt old barriers to access and to create new routes of expanded access across the country. It's the only site of its kind that brings everything we know about safe abortion pill access into one place. But we also do much more than maintain a website. So one of the biggest barriers to abortion pill access is that people don't know they exist. And that is why we partner with community-based organizations, corporations, grassroots organizers, universities, and media groups to educate communities around the country about their options. These partnerships can take the form of social media campaigns, webinars, trainings, mobile billboards, or any other fun or creative ideas we can think of. One of our most recently launched initiatives is Plan C stickers. So these small stickers can be placed anywhere, and they have a QR code that leads directly to our website. While small in nature, these stickers have been a really successful and fun way to engage people in medication abortion, education, and advocacy, particularly the younger generation that we were kind of talking about, who really are kind of looking for quick ways to get involved and to make a difference. And so this past year has been monumental for our awareness campaigns. And in September, even Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez was tweeting about Plan C to her 12.8 million followers after we drove a mobile billboard with Plan C information through the state of Texas prior to their SB 8 law going into effect. In fact, we've had over 100 press features in the past 6 months, from the New York Times to NPR to Samantha Bee. And another pillar of our strategy is to drive new research, which means ensuring that academics can continue to document, evaluate, and publish about this model, which further normalizes it and brings it into the mainstream through press articles, talks, and papers about the research. We are currently raising a multi-million-dollar research fund to make sure this continues to happen in 2022 and beyond. So as you can see, knowledge is power. And by sharing Plan C widely, you can help people take their power back and access that 21st century abortion, which is just an affordable, safe, convenient, and private abortion option without ever having to leave the home. Framing this information in a variety of ways and meeting people where they are is how we get more people to know about their options and to spread this information to their friends, families, and communities, which is important now more than ever. This is why we started initiatives like the Plan C Ambassador Program, which gives people from all different backgrounds an easy way to get involved and start taking action by choosing from a variety of committees catered to their interests and expertise. Abortion access is inevitable. And what we have learned in this past year is that the harder politicians push to block abortion, the faster information about this new autonomous option will spread. And if Roe is under threat, it's time to get even louder, bolder, and spread the word even farther to make sure it's here to stay. And so I ask you all to join us and follow us at Plan C Pills and go to our website, plancpills.org, to visit the guide, spread the word, order stickers, donate, and get involved. Because I don't know about you, but my body is not up for vote. Thank you.
Wow, that's an action-packed presentation. I know there are a lot of questions. I saw one in the chat, how to get stickers, and I think you've just answered that too.
Yes, so there is a order form if you go to our website to get stickers, and I'll try to go to the website and drop that link in the chat to make it a little bit easier.
And I'll just say I went on your website last night and just surfed around for a bit, and the amount of information there, groups I have never heard of, a whole lot of new groups coming up, having different strategy. You've mentioned some of them, brand new to me. So I'm going to go back and do a little bit more digging on your website. It's pretty impressive.
Yeah. And I know somebody said in the chat that that they wanted me to mention just that medication abortion is FDA approved up to 10 weeks, and that is true. So this is a method that's approved by the FDA for up to 10 weeks. There is still research going on to see if that amount of time can be expanded. So new research is coming out that's saying that it's probably going to be effective up to 11 weeks, maybe even longer, but they're still doing that research.
Great. Well, I imagine people have questions. So if you have a question, I see one. Leslie, there you are. Hi.
Hi. Thanks for all of this, Carol and Cynthia. Yeah, I'm wondering about the Plan C. You know, I run a federally qualified health center, and my understanding was that providers could get a special certification to be able to prescribe the pills directly. Unfortunately, I guess the word right now that we have is that the Hyde Amendment is going to prevent an FQHC like ours from getting that certification. So for a clinic that, you know, serves thousands of women, low-income women, at this point, we can just refer them to or we can just work with Hey Jane, and they go off on their own and take care of it. Is that the process?
So it could be. So the way that our website is set up is it does list state by state kind of what options people can have if what they want to do is go online to find pills. And so depending on what state you're in, so California has a lot of options for, finding pills online, but yeah, so that is an option you could do, and there are a lot of different options for a lot of different price points to kind of help.
I know Medi-Cal covers physician services for abortion. Cover pills? Does it cover pills?
Medi-Cal, I believe that Medi-Cal will cover abortion pills, but I know a lot of the online places, some don't necessarily do insurance just because it's a little bit harder to do, but a lot of them do also offer sliding scales so that the cost won't be a barrier.
Leslie, I think what I'm hearing, I mean, you have such a close and trusting relationship as the primary care provider for your clients. You hate to send them off to a mail order when you want to be
I mean,
part of
ideally we'd like to be dispensing,
Yeah.
That would be the dream, I think, but.
And, I think this is maybe a question to pursue.
Yeah.
Seriously, yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
Mike.
So I may be belaboring a point that's already been made, but a lot of times when you order stuff online, they're scams for medications or almost anything else. And I just wanted to clarify that if they contact Plan C, they'll get a list of approved, will they get a list of approved mail order places that they can trust are going to not be some scam that's sending them fake medications and so forth?
Yeah, so our entire directory is research driven. And so all of the sites that are on there, and it's constantly being updated as they continue to test things, we've ordered from them, we've had them sent to another, like an independent lab to be tested. So that's how we have accurate information about the ship times, the costs, so yeah, so if you pick a site from the website, you should be able to trust that it is going to be exactly what you're getting.
Thank you. All right, we're looking for hands, people that have questions.
Nothing in chat.
I don't see any hands at this point, but we'll wait a moment. It takes time for people to warm up.
Well, Imani, I did mention, and you mentioned in your talk, I did read it on your website, and you mentioned it, the research that's being done. It was interesting for me to see that Plan C efforts grew out of the morning after pill. It's safe. The movement to make it more available over the counter, et cetera. And that kind of drove the momentum for Plan C, and that it was research based. Yes, it's pill. Yes, it's safe. Doing it through telemedicine, and the fact that telemedicine has legitimized a way of delivering healthcare that in this case is a blessing. Can you tell us about some of the research that you're involved with or others are involved with to move the needle here?
Yeah, so a lot of the research that has been coming up. So Access Delivered out of the University of Washington actually does a lot of research looking into just how people are using medication abortion, new routes of access. And so they're constantly looking to publish new things about how to get this method of abortion access even further and to improve people's experiences of having a self-managed abortion. And so that's just one place that's kind of starting that research. And there's definitely been a lot of other schools. So I know right now, even at my school, UCLA, there's a couple of professors that are really in the in the very early stages of starting a self-managed abortion study. And so it definitely is becoming a lot more of a research topic than it has been in the past, self-managed abortion specifically. And so it's definitely very exciting to see that that people are looking into this and are really committed to finding new routes of access. So wait, was that kind of?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
And Francine might be able to say a little bit more about it if she's still on too.
Well, I think we're open for other questions as well. Yes, I see a hand up there. You got to unmute yourself first. Unmute. Hi, Susan.
Hi,
There you
Cynthia. This is my friend Sharon.
Hi.
Hi, I'm Sharon. I have a question about how the bans of receiving the medication, how that works in the states that are restricting people getting the pills. There are some states that don't allow the pills to be delivered. How on earth do they enforce that?
Wishful thinking.
Yeah, so I think a lot of it is too wishful thinking, and a lot of those bans are actually preventing providers from within that state shipping people pills. And so when you're using international providers, they are using their own kind of laws, and so their laws say nothing about their ability to ship pills, and so they're just going about their regularly scheduled day and sending out pills. And so that's kind of how that is getting around. So it's not the laws of those states that are saying, oh, like pills can't be shipped within the state don't necessarily apply to them in the Netherlands. That's where the doctor from Aid Access is from. But so that's kind of how they're getting around those bans in those states.
So they won't have vigilantes checking people's mail, right?
I would not think so, and that's definitely a crime. So I would
Thank
say
you.
no.
I do want to piggyback on that question because Customs in the United States doesn't have to accept an overseas packet that they suspect may have pills that are not legal or in a particular state. Try sending Ambien across lines. I know this. But I did want to ask about like how even state to state, I mean, is there where it's illegal in the state that the woman might be receiving the pills? Is there like sending porn where there's a brown paper package or a neutral address or something that someone's parents wouldn't fiddle with it?
Yeah, so I mean, most of the packaging is definitely discreet, so it's not going to come in like an abortion pill box or anything like that. And while Customs can reject any package, but we haven't had too many instances of packages being apprehended in Customs. Like it has happened before, but not in a way that would say like this is definitely like an ineffective method. And as far as between states shipping, so depending on how you want to do it, and our website goes into a lot more details about this, you can just go directly to one of these pharmacies or Aid Access and order the pills and have them shipped to you that way. We also talk about mail forwarding, which essentially is when you rent an address in a state that essentially it is legal to ship abortion pills in, and then that just gets forwarded to you. And that process, they don't necessarily really check the packages once it's been, sent to a place that's already in the United States. And then there's also advanced provision, which is a kind of a newer thing that's happening where doctors are actually prescribing a medication before you need it. So it's done with a lot of other medications, but Aid Access is actually providing advanced provision abortion pills to all 50 states. So it's something you can get before you're ever even pregnant. And then there really is no law that says you can't like have those pills on hand, especially since you're not necessarily even pregnant at that time. So.
Well, I think what's clear is that this is a moving target.
It is. It's definitely
it's an evolving field for sure, legally and in terms of the technology, whole telemedicine and so forth. I just want to see, are there any other questions?
Francine has her hand up again. Francine.
Okay.
Yes, I just wanted to support what Imani just said. The point I'd made, and I didn't mean to, before Imani talked, I thought I was speaking after Imani had already given her speech. But the point is that there is a lot of interest now on a lot of people to push against these laws that have been put on the books in all these red states and really test them. Most laws that forbid either medication abortion or mailing or however or telemedicine are there specifically to stop this process. And they haven't actually been tested. And that we are hearing from a lot of clinicians who are interested in being bolder and saying, well, wait a minute, how could I, as a physician or a clinician or a nurse midwife or a nurse practitioner, not feel like I can ship these safe, federally approved, legal, safe drugs to a patient of mine just because they live in another state? So that's when I said we're talking to lawyers to see if there can be some ways of supporting people willing to go a step further. Even the question that came up earlier about what can be done in federally supported centers here in California, pushing that envelope and saying, well, of course I can write a prescription for mifepristone and misoprostol, even though I'm in a federally funded program in California. Let's try that. Let's do that. So that's what's happening now is we're calling it conscientious provision. It's sort of turning the conscientious, sort of on its head and saying, I'm a provider who believes I should be able to do this, and I don't quite understand these laws that say I can't, so I'm going to start doing it, and let's see what happens. So that's kind of the new moving forward, and I think California is really in the lead in doing that.
And this makes me think there may be a fusion of Plan C and Center for Reproductive Rights coming together here.
Well, as Imani said, we are working with a lot of lawyer groups. There are a lot of lawyering groups. There's Center for Reproductive Rights, there's the Lawyering Projects, there's If and How, there's National Advocates for Pregnant Women. Definitely, we've always partnered with these because the main thing we always say is right now, in fact, if there's something unsafe about taking medication abortion, it's not medical safety, it's the likelihood that you're going to get either you, the provider, might get prosecuted for helping somebody get this, or the person taking it might get prosecuted for self-managing. So the lawyers are a very, very important part of this, and they have been from the get-go. And it's really exciting how much interest and appetite there is to say, we're just not going to, as Imani said so beautiful. I mean, she said it so beautiful, I don't need to repeat it. It really is like, we can't do this anymore. This is not right anymore, right? We need to do something differently.
You're here.
Well, I think that is probably a good theme note to end on for the program here. I think are there any more questions?
Nothing in chat.
Okay, I think maybe it is a good time to wrap up. We're pretty much on schedule. There has been so much new provocative information presented by both speakers. I'm going to make a plea to the DWC to somehow do a summary of some of the resources, the websites, et cetera, and get it out as a follow-up to the membership. There's a lot for us to chew on. I've visited both the websites of these groups. They're wonderful, and we can take so much from those to take the next step. So that's just a request to DWC. I do want to thank the speakers. Oh my gosh, you've been great. I'm really pleased that the DWC has made donations to both of these groups to carry on their work. I know that we will follow with advocacy, also follow up with a request to our elected officials for some of the critical legislation and resolutions that we know they can do at the state and federal level. Mike did announce at the very beginning of the meeting a program that the AAUW is putting on at noon today, and I want to just reiterate that. It's a webinar about, it's our local AAU chapter, a webinar on a training for people who deal with teens, particularly on the topic of sex trafficking, understanding the signals and the mechanisms so that particularly those who are in touch with teens can be more engaged in prevention. So Mike, I think you put their info on the chat. Is that correct?
That's correct. And I also, it'll take me a moment to get it up, but after the program's over, I will share my screen with both the URLs, the website directions for individual donations to both of these groups, as well as to get onto this program that will be at noon today on sex trafficking.
Great.
I also want to announce that our next program next month will be on a Saturday. It's not clear yet whether it's the 19th or 26th. Will be on midterm elections and what's going on in the U.S. Senate. Our keynote speaker will be Dan Whirls from the politics department at UCSC, and we'll of course be sending out a lot of information about that program.
And Mike, as a reminder, it'll take us a few days. We'll have a recording of this forum up on our webpage. And like Cynthia said, we can look at the resources and get those up as well. Thank you, Cynthia, for that good hint.
And Peggy has said at the beginning of the meeting, there are generally even more people attending or seeing this information on the recordings than at the actual meeting. So please, all of you know how incredibly provocative this meeting has been. Please spread the word of the recording once it goes up. So again, thank you all for being here. We all know the stakes are just daunting, but we don't give up. So thank you all for being here. Thank you for the speakers. Thank you for all the hard workers. Thanks.
Thank you.
I will now share my screen.
Thanks, Mike.